Okay, so you may have heard of her story. It's supposed to be interesting, that's what everyone keeps saying, but it's very difficult to read and particularly watch stuff about this game without running into spoilers. So Christian Donlan and myself are here to kind of give you the pitch for why you might want to play this game without ruining it.
I think it's acceptable to say Her Story is a game about narrative. And what it is you are looking at old interview footage with this woman. You cannot watch it you have the whole thing practically, a whole series of interviews with her, but you cannot watch them in order. They have been broken up into little sort of 10 or 40 second chunks, which are searchable by keywords.
Right.
And you can see the entire database as blocks, and they fill in when you've seen the clip. So you have that Pokemon sense of collecting all the clips.
The game aspect of Her Story is trying to figure out what the correct keywords will be to unlock the story.
And essentially, you're not really trying to. At first, you're not really trying to unlock all of the database. You're trying to get the story.
Right.
You're trying to understand the kind of the sort of the fancy word is hermeneutics, isn't it, for like mystery stories? You're trying to get to the bottom of this. By the time you pretty much understand the story, Pokemon fever takes over, and you've got to catch them all. Yeah.
Okay, so right now you've got my my serial sense tingling ever so slightly because, you know, it's a series of interviews. There's this kind of distance in terms of the time in which they were recorded and the fact that you're not necessarily going to get all the information in the right order. That sounds familiar to me.
See,
Serial being the award-winning podcast that, of course, you know of. Let's not pretend you don't.
So people say that Serial and Her Story are similar, and it seems to me that they're actually really different. They're almost opposites. Serial is about the formlessness of life. It's about how life does not actually fit into this HBO arc. It's about how the question you have as you watch Serial, as you listen to Serial, increasingly is like, as the last episode came closer and closer, you're like, how are they going to land this?
Yeah.
Because obviously they can't.
Which is such a strange expectation to have.
Yes, it is. You listen to Serial, and by the end of it, you are completely interested in like the narratology of it. Like, how are you going to find a satisfying ending for this thing which is still unfolding? And it's all about how the further you look into history, the less clear it becomes. Her Story seems to dabble with the same themes, but it's very written. And I mean, this is the strength of it. It's very carefully constructed, and you can see that construction coming out in the way that they introduce themes and the way they introduce sort of quite artful things which illuminate the facts which are coming to light. And I think Her Story ultimately does make sense.
Sure. So you're probably going to take something different away from Her Story than you did from Serial, but it can maybe at times be a bit more satisfying.
I think that it all depends on how much you like stuff that's about the formlessness of life, which I love. But I appreciate that I'm on my own.
Okay.
I'm in a minority there.
All right, cool. Well, I'm still in this. So this still sounds like a fun time.
Yes.
An interesting time.
But so what's really interesting about Her Story, which we want to talk about, is, and this is not a spoiler because this is what got me excited about playing the game, is you have this database and you can search it by keywords. Right. And that means that you can stumble upon something really important in investigation.
By chance.
Quite early on, if you get lucky.
Oh, man.
And in fact, a lot of people have. But what's genius about this, what I love about...
It's like rolling a critical hit.
What I love about Her Story is that it takes the control of the narrative, the way it unfolds, and it hands it over to you.
Yep.
And yet it still works as a game, because it's not handing it over to you directly, it's handing it over to your ingenuity in taking the pieces which you start with and extrapolating outwards from them to find other searches. So everyone's journey is slightly different, and it feels very freeform, and it feels like you're in control, but in fact the game still exerts this little bit of control in that it's giving you the starting point and everything else is working from that. In that respect, it feels like Sudoku, where you have all these empty spaces, but you have these numbers which are giving you clues as to what other numbers are, where else they are in the grid. So like every Sudoku game, you think you can fill in the grid on your own way, and there's a certain degree of leeway in there.
But you're always being guided.
There is, in a sense, I haven't really seen something like this before, where the narrative control is handed over to the player, and yet it retains the shape. So Tom Francis wrote a piece about why he thinks it works over the weekend, and he was talking about the fact that when you search for a search term, it will only ever bring back the first 5 clips with that search term, and that kind of imposes, and they're ordered chronologically.
Okay.
So it means that you can never, a search term will always give you the early stuff rather than the late stuff, and it also allows you it gives you a hint to when there's more of something. So okay, there are 16 clips with the
Okay,
search
so it's
term,
not
but
quite
here
as
are only
random.
5 of them.
Okay, yeah.
So
yeah.
it is exerting a little control like that, but it's also encouraging you to search out from that point. And this comes from my big realization
yes.
about
I know
Her
you're excited
Story.
about this comparison.
Her Story is the game Battleships. In that, you are, the game they play famously in Bill and Ted, you have sunk my battleship.
Sure.
So you are calling out coordinates.
People are aware of battleships.
Okay, good. I don't know. I feel like the Victorian playing with a hoop and a stick in the street increasingly, and everyone's like, take your hoop out here, Grandad. So Battleship, you have this empty grid. You can't see the enemy, where your enemy has placed their ships, and you are trying to drop bombs into certain squares. And whenever you get a hit, you know that there must be another hit
that guides your
in another contiguous square, but you don't know which one. So you zero in on it like this. And in Her Story, it's the same thing. You learn a new word, and you start to work around that word. And so it becomes, Her Story is basically lexical, if that's even a word, battleships.
But instead of blowing up ships, you're uncovering a story that sounds like it might be really interesting, but we can't say why.
Yes,
Excellent.
exactly.
And that right there is our pitch for Her Story and why you might want to check it out.
Yeah, because it's battleships.
Because it's battleships. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You have sunk my battleship.
Hello and welcome to the Eurogamer Show. Johnny, is your voice better?
Not really, no.
Oh, well then you're no good to anyone, are you? Go on, piss off. That's better.